What's up, friends? We have somehow reached week 5 of Students Explore, which means this is our last week, which is kind of crazy. These 2 months have flown by. Next week we have our overnight, but whether you are a parent joining us because you want to be a part of this journey, you want to explore your own faith, or whether you are one of our students who couldn't be here tonight, we're so glad you're here for our last week of Explore here on YouTube. And this week we're talking about our lives, our stories, and how they intersect God's story. Last week we talked about mission and calling and what God made us for, and so tonight we're just going to look at the stories of our lives and try to explore where God has been in the twists and turns, the ups and downs of life. We're also going to just name this week that part of faith is questions. I'm just going to lead with this because as we go on through life, we said this from the very beginning of Explore, that questions will always be a part of our stories of faith. That there will be things that we're certain of, things that we believe with every fiber of our being, but there will also be things that we're not sure about. Big questions we have. And there might be things that happen in the world and in your life that make you think, well, where was God during any of that? And I just want to say on the front end that all of our stories have ups and downs, have moments where we are so connected to God, and also moments where we couldn't feel further away from God, not even sure that God is there. And to be confirmed isn't to say that we have all the answers. It's not to say that we've got it all figured out. But it's to say that we want to spend our lives wrestling with what it means to follow that God. To not be sure about that God, but have questions about that God, but to be loved by that God and to love that God in return. And so tonight we're talking about our lives and the way we do lives together. And so we're going to start with that because Jesus didn't do faith alone. Jesus could do miracles. He was the Son of God. He was God. He had kind of everything he needed. Jesus chose to bring along these 12 disciples along with him. And there were hundreds of more followers, but we kind of recognize these 12, but there's this whole group of hundreds of supporters, of followers. Jesus did faith alongside other people. He didn't do it alone. And there's so much about faith that we do together. How weird would it be if you went to church on a Sunday morning and it was just you? That'd be kind of strange, right? I mean, you might be the world's greatest singer and you might be the world's greatest prayer, but it's different doing it alone. Or even serving or giving. Yes, you can give and be generous. You can serve and do so much work, but you can do and give so much more together than you can alone. The original word church comes from the Greek word ekklesia, which just means, and I realize that this will feel weird here, but it just means gathering. The original church was just a gathering of people coming together to pray, to celebrate communion. That was what the earliest church did. They were people who got together so that they could encourage one another. In Acts chapter 2, this is what it says about that first ecclesia. It says, the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the community, to their shared meals, and to their prayers. A sense of awe came over everyone. All the believers were united and they shared everything. They would sell pieces of property and possessions and distribute the proceeds to everyone who needed them. Every day they met together in the temple and ate in their homes. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. That's a church I'd be a part of. These earliest followers of Jesus didn't just hold it to themselves. They didn't just say yeah, this is my thing. I'll do it on my own time. No, they knew that to follow Jesus, we need one another. But there's a funny thing about church. We talk about church like this thing that we do for an hour on Sundays. How was church? But that wasn't how the earliest people who followed Jesus understood what the church was. Yes, they gathered, but like the best understanding of the church was a gathering that was designed to scatter. It was a gathering that was designed to go from here and go out there. You know, this is maybe a weird comparison, but someone shared with me once that we talk about church like it's a thing that you go to, but really it's a thing to belong to. It's a thing that we participate in, where we are loved, we're connected. And so a friend once compared a church to a gang, which I get. It sounds kind of weird and silly, but here's the idea. You know, we say things like, how was church? Was church good this morning? And the idea is that, like, can you imagine how silly it would be if you're in a gang and you said to someone, so how was gang last night? Was it good? Was gang good? Did the gang leader talk really well, inspire you? No! Like, a church is a gathering of people who belong together, but so they can go live out what it means to be the church in the community. We gather so we can scatter. Now in week 1, we talked about waffles and pancakes and how sometimes we like to live kind of these waffle lives where we can like do our schoolwork in one square, put the syrup in there, and our sports over here, and our band over here, and our other extracurriculars over here, and our family and our friends. And there's a little faith square we can put our faith in, but that's not how God works. Like, we don't put God in a quadrant of our life. Like, God created the universe. God created us. God is a part of everything. And so there's no part of our life where like the syrup of God does not touch. You know, when we talk about Emmanuel, we talk about like when Jesus is born around Christmas, we talk about how like who God is God with us. There's no point in our lives when it's not right to say that God was with us. Now, there are highs and lows throughout life. And there are dark moments and light moments. There are spaces in our lives when it feels lonely and isolated and everything is working against us and nothing is the way it's supposed to be. Like, yes, parts of life are dark and painful. And there are also moments when everything's going well. When everything is exactly as it's supposed to be. In all of those things, God is with us. Maybe you've heard Psalm 23. We read it at a lot of funerals. But the psalmist says this, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall lack nothing. He lets me rest in grassy meadows. He leads me to restful waters. He keeps me alive. He guides me in proper paths for the sake of His good name." Well, that sounds like a good place to be. Walking in grassy meadows, restful waters, keeps me alive. It's like, yeah, the Lord is my shepherd. God was with me, walking me through those places, leading me where I needed to go. God was with me. And then immediately after that it says, "And even when I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no danger because you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they protect me." I wouldn't want to be in the darkest valley, but I've been there at times in my life. If you haven't found that place yet, at some point you'll get there. And even then the promise is, "I fear no danger because you are with me." Friends, there is no point in your story where God hasn't been with you. So here's how we're going to close Explore tonight, and for kind of all of Explore. I want you to pull out a piece of paper and a pen, or something to write with, doesn't matter what. And you just hit pause until you go get those things. And we'll be here when you get back. All right. So everyone take your sheet of paper. And I want you to mark the big events in your life on a timeline. And so on the bottom of your paper, just draw a line. And on the far left side, I want you just to write the year you were born. And on the far right side of that line, underneath it, just write today. And then on the far left of your paper, I want you to draw a vertical line just above where you wrote your birth year. And that's going to be like your joy line, your joy axis. And so on your graph, your chart of your life, I want you to chart out some of the big events in your life. Things like times you started a new school, or if your family moved, or if you were baptized, or family changes. Maybe that's like a divorce, or a death, or maybe you have a baby brother or sister that was born. Big accomplishments, things that you're super proud of. Things that happen in sports. You made a team, or you got to go to your first travel tournament, or you got cut from the team that you really wanted to play on. Moments where you met your best friends, or significant relationships in your life. Those can be part of it too. So take a few minutes, and again, hit pause when we're done, and just chart out the big moments in your life. So like use that bottom line and like, okay, this was about here where it happened, and then go up or down until like it was really high or really low, and then just mark a little dot and write what the event was. Take as long as you want. We'll be here. Just hit pause and then come on back. All right, so here's what I want you to do with all those highs and lows, those big moments in your life. I just want you to look over those things and ask yourself a couple things. One, to look through those events and ask, well, what did I learn from that? How did that change me? How am I different because that happened? What are the lessons I learned going through that, whether it's high or low? And then, as you do that, I want you to mark the highs and lows of your faith story. And maybe you don't even feel like you have many, and that's okay. We already marked, I said like you could mark being baptized, but maybe it was a mission trip or a camp you went to. Maybe it was a retreat or a small group leader or a Thrive or a Christmas Eve or an Easter or just a Sunday morning when you felt God connecting with you. Or maybe it's been moments when you felt totally disconnected from God. Whole gaps where you just couldn't be bothered. Maybe it's when you met a certain person who's had a huge impact in your life, a core group leader or a grandparent. And once you've done that, again, you can hit pause if you're finishing. We're going to look at these stories of our lives through a practice called the prayer of examen. This is a traditionally Catholic prayer. But what you'd do is, at the end of a day, you'd look back at the day you had. And you'd ask yourself, where was God in those days? Now we're going to do this not just for a day, but for our whole lives. And the idea is just to look back at our lives in a posture of prayer and see what God had to show us through those things that we marked on our life story. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to just sit for a second and I want you to ask God, which moments on your timelines feel the most significant for one reason or another? To ask God, how have those things shaped your life today when you look back on it? Ask God, when you look back, are there things that you've learned about God from the things that weren't faith moments? That weren't on that second list of highs or lows or big events? And then finally, what are your hopes? And maybe ask, what are God's hopes? If you could be so bold and imagine that much. For the next chapters of your life. The part of your chart that hasn't been written yet. What are your hopes or God's hopes for that chapter of your story? Here's why we close Explore this way. As a reminder that our stories are so intersecting with God's story. That God is up to something in the world and we're a part of it. Because God made us and God created us and God has a call for us and a purpose for us. And because God is with us and for us. And there's no moment on the chart of your life that hasn't been true. My prayer for you as we kind of end Explore this week and ahead of our overnight next week is when you look at your story, that you know that you were made by a God who loves you. And that in grassy meadows or in the darkest valleys, that God is with you, has been with you, and will be with you every step of your journey. Until next time, we're out.